Okay, so let's take a look at last week. Week 8 wasn't my greatest week. Wasn't too bad either, though. A nice pick of Miles Jones and Ben Randall. T.D. Erlin did better than expected. Dylan Ward was the major miss as well as Will Manny, getting -1 points after putting up 7 or 6 points the week prior, like 6 actual points compared to -1 fantasy points. That's a tough go. But looking forward to next week, I thought that those were some good picks, kind of out of the rough, I would say. So let's start with Woods Cannons. I'm not even going to get into my fantasy team yet. Let's start off with the Woods, who have lost one the week before. They're 1-1 since All Star break, and the Cannons have lost 6 in a row, looking for their first win since the first week of the season. Attack and goalie, I think, lean towards the Cannons, and midfield, defense, face-off definitely lean more towards the Woods. There's only ever been one previous matchup, and the Woods won it by 12-11, but they had 20 turnovers and they went 78% on faceoffs. Both teams give up a lot of goals against. Both teams, 5 for the Woods, 6 for the Cannons, have given up 12 or more scores this entire season. Lyle and their over-under, surprisingly, 24.5. Lyle has been red fucking hot this season, and last year he had 3 points, 4 ground balls, 2 turnovers in that game against the Redwoods. Zach Goodrich, short stick demon of the year last year, has had a cause turnover at least one in his last 4 games. Last week they added Mike Cockerton to the roster, and he had 3 goals in his first game with them. Not too shabby. He's probably going to be a 3. I wouldn't be opposed to starting him, but I like, me, I like playing my ones as my attackman. Ryan Drenner had 3 points last year. It hasn't been super crazy this year, but that 3 points came off of 7 shots. Personally, I just don't see it happening again. Stephen Kelly, 32% against the Redwoods last year. I expect that to be better. By how much, I really couldn't tell you. I wouldn't expect it to be above 60, but I would expect it to be above 40. Garland has kind of been a boomer bust, but last year he had 2 caused turnovers, 3 ground balls, and 1 point versus the Redwoods. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen again. And the guy who I think would be a nice throw in there for a depth guy is Jake Vaccaro. He's inactive right now, but he had 4 assists last year versus the Redwoods. I like him. I think that he's a good addition to the team if they could throw him in. If not, it is what it is. I'm not sure why he's inactive, but he is. On the other side, we have Rob Pennell, 11 points in his last 3 games, 4 points in the game last year. So I like that. T.D. Erlin, 74% versus Kelly last year. Um, Not the greatest in this season, but above 50%. So we'll see. They're both shooting right around that 52, 53% so far this season. Jones has had back-to-back 4-point games. He had a 4-point game last year against the Cannons. Do I see it continuing? I don't know. I'm always skeptical. Bertrand has 9 goals in his last 4 games. I think he's had 2 hat-tricks, and the rest of added up to 9 goals. Garnsey has 8 points, including a 5-goal game last week. 8 points in his last 2 games, that is. And Epple has kind of been on a downtrend, but last year had 3 caused turnovers, 2 ground balls against the Cannons. So who knows? And then the other guy who we have to think about is Jules Henningberg. He's out right now, most likely concussion protocol. We'll see if he comes back in. Chaos Chrome. I think the only category that Chaos take this in is goaltending. I don't really think I'm going to go with anyone in this. I think their over-under is 23.5, 24.5, right around there. They got rid of the plus minus 2.5s for everybody, so everything is just plus minus 1.5. I think I went under with this game. I think the Chrome are great defensively. I think Blaze is one of, if not the best goaltender in the league. So that's kind of the direction that I'm leaning more towards. The Chaos have won their last 2 games, both with a combined score of 26 or more. So they've been, I just said that they're going to go under, but it's kind of been showing that the way that they win games is by scoring a lot of goals, which is kind of surprising. They get back Max Adler. He went 48 last year against the Chrome, and Farrell went 57 last year against the Chaos. Farrell, though, has been 60% or more in 5 of his 7 games played this season. It's nice that we're finally getting some sample size of how guys are doing this season. Cloutier with back-to-back 3-point games had 4 points last year against the Chrome. Byrne with 4 points in back-to-back-to-back games and had 5 points last year against the Chrome. He's actually a 2. So that's interesting to think about that. I might have to rethink it, but I think that Lyle's an absolute slam dunk. And then you got Dane Smith, 16 points in 6 games this season. He had 3 points last year against Chrome. That was actually his season high. He had 4 games, I think, with 3 points, and obviously blew that out of the water last week with 7 points. On the other side, defensively, Giles Harris, you have 3 calls turnovers, 9 ground balls in his last 3 games. No sample size from him last season. I believe he was coming off an ACL tear with his last year with Duke. Salama has been kind of boom or bust. We'll see what happens there. Manley has been on absolute fire since the All-Star break. Wisniewski has kind of been hit or miss. He had 3 games with 2 or less goals or 2 or less points, and he had 3 games with 5 or more points. So you're either getting like, damn, I can't believe I started him, or wow, I can't believe I just like banked in. Malloy has definitely cooled down since the season has started. Nick Churn has been on absolute fire. He's been one of the best fantasy players in the entire league, especially with Wisniewski missing not last week, but the week before that, putting up 7 points himself. And then Justin Anderson has been averaging 2 points per game, had 3 last year, so maybe he's worth it. I believe he's the first threshold of that 2 category for midfielders. Then we got the Dogs and the Atlas. Both of these games have gone super close in the last 2 years. They've both been 1-goal games. 10-9 Dogs, 11-10 Atlas. We'll see what happens this year. The Atlas is definitely a different team. Attack, midfield, defense, face-off, Atlas, Dogs, I think, have a slight edge with Dylan Ward over Buchanan, but last week, obviously, Dylan Ward not the greatest game. I wouldn't expect that to be the new norm. McArdle, a surprising almost 4 points per game average. He has 27 points so far this season, which is fucking, I didn't fucking know. Reese has really been a boom or pretty decent, but that's your one going to a defenseman. You know how I feel about that. Withers has definitely held his own against the Atlas. Held his own means that he's actually, I guess if you took it win-loss for percentage over 50, he's 1-1. And so is TB against him. So, maybe he knows something that we don't. Burns has been averaging, Liam Burns that is, 1 calls turnover, 2 ground balls, maybe a little bit more pretty consistently. So the Dogs is where I like to go for my defense most of the time. You have the Burns, the Go Brecht, about the same statistic-wise. Randall had 1 pretty good game last week. Sowers is a questionable right now. He's averaging just above 3.5 points per game, but at minimum, he usually puts up 3 points. So he's extremely consistent, but he's questionable. We'll see how that impacts his playing time or if he plays at all. Courier has been averaging about 2 points per game, but his ground balls is 5+ per game. The only issue is that he's a 1. It's a little high to be banking in on 2 points at 5 ground balls. I get that that's, 20 points right there, so I guess that does make sense. But I'm just not sure how I feel about, going up against a guy like Trevor Baptiste and hoping that, you can outplay one of the best face-off guys and teams in the league. Because it's more than just a face-off guy, it's the wingers as well. And then Brown we have out. Probably wouldn't have played him anyway. Hasn't had the greatest season so far this year. Teat, now looking at the other side of the ball, Teat has been averaging 4 points per game, had 3 points last year versus the Dogs. T-Bap, like I said, has gone 1-1 with Jake Withers. And then you have Law, Gray, Costabile, all been absolutely on fire. Chick, Cade Van Rapport have been on fire. And then Danny Logan had a 1 call turnover, 2 ground balls last year. Maybe he's a guy you want to look at as like a 3, but I don't even think that he's ranked there. So so far, it's looking pretty good, like in terms of the overall, like Woods Cannons. I feel like you kind of know what you're going to get. Chaos Chrome, you kind of know what you're going to get. Dogs Atlas, you kind of know what you're going to get. But it's the Archers and Whips that go off the rail for me. Whips, obviously, low-scoring team, great defensively. That's just been known since day one. Their last 2 appearances, they've combined for 29 goals in each game. 15-14 has actually been the identical score, both last year. Archers won 1, Whips won the other. And the Whips and the Archers actually won in week 8. It's week 9, so we'll see. Attack midfield, I got to lean the Archers. Defense, goalie, face off, definitely going with the Whips. I feel like that's not real. I feel like that's pretty clear cut. Holman has been pretty hot, but he's kind of been a boomer bust. 3 points in 2 games against the Archers, against the Whipsnakes last year. I doubt that I'd go towards Holman in this game. Manny has been averaging more than 4 points per game, has 9 points in those 2 games last year. Fields with 8 points in the 2 games last year. Schreiber with 7 points in the 2 games last year. Dominic Alexander, I think, is a guy defensively, short stick D mid that I think you could kind of go towards. Connors has been kind of boomer bust, but he's a 3, so we'll see. Ratliff has been pretty consistent with his 1 calls turnover, maybe 2 or 3 ground balls if you're looking for consistency again. But then Hasek and McMahon have just been absolute fire. McMahon with 5 calls turnovers, 8 ground balls in 2 games against the Whipsnakes last year. Jeez. And then we have the other side of the ball, Channy, 5 points in those 2 games last year. Rambo was on a bit of a burner, kind of cooled off. Brad Smith has been kind of boomer bust. He only has 1 game with, I think, more than 3 points, and it was with 5. Not too many 3-point games, not too many 2 points, or a lot of 2 and 1 points. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Earnhardt has not been great against the Archers, but it has been red hot. Burnlor has been red hot, not really great against the Archers. Zed Williams has had 8 points in those 2 games, really needs a breakout game, has just been averaging 2 points per game. We'll finish this first, hold on. So Squires has been pretty consistent with that 1-2, calls turnover ground ball. Khan had back-to-back 3-point games, and Nardella, I think here is an absolute lock. You have to play him, especially as a 2. My concern, Zed Williams, like this whole thing, on the other side, the Fields, the Holmans, the Mays, the Schreibers. I just don't think it's. I don't see it going to 29 goals. I see the Whipsnakes, if they are going to give themselves a chance, they're going to be able to minimize. They're going to win a lot of faceoffs. They're going to hold on to the ball. They're going to play conservatively. They're going to keep this a low-scoring game. They're going to keep the ball out of Schreiber's hands, out of Manny's hand, out of Holman's hand, out of Amen's hand, out of all those guys. So I'm just not really too sure where I'm really leaning towards this, but I think I'm going to stay away from that more or less. But we'll see as I get into it. Attack, midfield, defense, goalie, face-offs. Face-off, I like Nardella, I like T.D. Erlin, and I'm thinking about it now, I kind of like Connor Farrell as well. But as you can see in my lineup to the left, Joe Nardella is my go-to. Goaltending-wise, Burnlor, and then my 2s are like Ward and Blaze, which is actually funny because it's the other way around. Ward and Blaze are the 1s, and then Burnlor's the 2. Defensively, I like Hasek, I like CVR, Ratliff, Manny. Like I said, Squires was my guy that was pretty consistent, and he's a 3, so I went with him. Midfield, Jones, Daner, Kelly, Fields, Schreiber. I'm going with Schreiber. I like Fields as well, but I'm going to stick with Schreiber. I feel like he's kind of due for a good game. I really need that consistency at the moment. And then Manny, Zeddy, Pinnell, Burns, Cloutier, McCardle, Teat. I'm going with Lyle. Probably should have included him as well, but obviously Lyle. I want to throw him in there. Against the Redwoods, just a high-scoring team. Their goaltending absolutely fucking disgusting. So I'm going to go lean that way. And then my hypothetical bets, Cannons, Redwoods. I'm kind of liking the Cannons money line, plus 120. Not sure how I feel about that. Don't lock it in. Chaos Chrome. I like the Chrome minus 1.5, although I tell myself every time, stay the fuck away from the fucking, from the minus spreads. And I like here the under 23.5. Because I think Chrome's going to win this. I think Chaos is going to take another loss. And if it's going to happen, it's going to be by under. Water Dogs Atlas. I like the Water Dogs. And now here I'll go into the spread as the plus, and that's minus 120. Water Dogs. And then Archers Whipsnakes. I don't really think I could touch this game. I'm just really not sure what I expect out of them. So we'll go position by position. So yeah, Blaze, Ward, 1s. Burnlor, Morocco, Concannon. You could go Morocco, you could go Concannon with your 2s, whatever the fuck you want to do. But if you were looking for a three here, Scanone I don't think is a bad play. Gittleman I think is a bad play. Um, After that, you really can't even touch the rest of the guys. So you're going to put in Jai Kelly, with all due respect. Face-off wise, you have Trevor Baptiste as your one, Joe Nardella is a two, everyone else is a three. If you're really trying to save a two and put it somewhere else, maybe T.D. Erlin or Connor Farrell's your guy. For me, I'm staying away with that just because no, Joe Nardella is an absolute lock to me. I can't give that up. And then defensively, I want to go Manley. I want to go Cade Van Raphorst, but averaging projection 12 points on their better day, I guess, or whatever. I guess not. I guess that's kind of their average. Just I just can't do it. So if I'm not spending a one, I'm spending a three on them. That's where I'm going with Squires. Like I said, he's been pretty consistent. You know what you're going to get, more or less. And I think that they'll do well defensively this game. Tom Schreiber is my go-to for the midfield. He's my one. You have Gutterding, Courier, Kelly, Henningberg, Jones, Schreiber, Drenner, Dane Smith to pick from. I like Schreiber here. I think he's kind of due for a game. Let's take a quick look at his stats, if we can. So last week only put up 9, week before put up 19. Week before that, -2, week before that, 5. Didn't play, 31, 16, 9. So I think he's kind of due for another good game. I know he just had a 19 just a couple weeks ago, but that was before the All-Star break. So if you're looking timeline-wise, he's kind of due. Dano, put up 31 last week, but hasn't really hasn't broken 20 besides that. And the other guy who I'm really thinking about here is Miles Jones, 21, 20, 20, 10, 3. So he's been on a bit of a burner recently. But I'm more confident in Schreiber. For some reason, Morocco just does well against these big 2-point scorers. So I'm kind of trying to lean away from that. Attack wise, we have Nick Churn we could go to. I think that's going to be an under game. Teat, I'm really not sure yeah, you could throw him in against the Dogs. I think that'll probably end up being a higher scoring game than historically speaking. But here I think that Lyle is just like, for me, Lyle's a slam dunk, Nardella's a slam dunk.